So hello everyone, and welcome to what was previously known as Meet the Developers. We have changed things up right now, and we have a few of our special product managers here in the house. So before I get started, I'd like you all to remember that Salesforce is a publicly traded company. Please make all purchasing decisions based on products that are generally available today. So again, thank you all for being here. I love seeing this crowd. You're ready to ask your questions. This is great. We love the fact that you're here and want to grow your Salesforce skills. You are part of our community, and we couldn't be more grateful. So, like I said, we have our PMs in the house today. Everyone give an applause. There we go. So, my name is Tara Venkatesan, and I'm joined here by Karen Fidelik. Raise your hand. There we go. Dilip Berkey, and Daniel Ballinger, and Leo Tran. Leo, in particular, is our favorite architect here in the house. Okay. We also have audience participants, too. All my PMs and developers, raise your hand in the audience. We have so many people here to answer your questions. So now we're going to get started. Before you all come up and ask your questions on that mic, I'm going to pass it to our speakers here to talk about something in the last 12 months they were most excited to release. Daniel, you want to get started?
Yep. So hello, I'm Daniel Ballinger, Product Manager for Apex. We've done a lot of features over the last 12 months. The first one that comes to mind is all the enhancements we've done to queuable processing in Apex. Really expanded the capabilities for developers from Apex to do deduplication, delays, all those sorts of features, and delivered a lot of idea exchange points in the process.
Awesome. Leo?
Hi, everyone. My name is Leo Tran. So I'm the Chief Architect for Platform. We've done a ton of exciting things. The one thing I wanted to highlight here first is our work around Data Cloud, being deeply integrated with Platform. I thought it was a good opportunity to share how we've been thinking in terms of engineering about Data Cloud and Einstein 1 Platform and AI. There's been a big focus, and hopefully you'll see more of it, that we want one integrated platform. We know that hasn't always been true. The seams are there, but we're really trying to double down and make it feel like one cohesive platform, especially for all of you who know how to package and develop on the platform with Apex, with low-code and pro-code tools. So now with Data Cloud, one thing we did recently last year was to integrate Data Cloud more deeply into SQL and CRM. So two things, we made it simpler to copy fields from Data Cloud back into CRM. So if you're in case, contact, lead, Data Cloud fields can come back directly into that CRM object, and you can work with it, as you know how to work with NES object. Second thing we did, Data Cloud related lists. So you can include a related list on the case, contact, lead, that CRM object. More importantly, as some of you know, how we did that was not only integrate with the related list metadata, we integrated with SQL subqueries. So that is something as a developer, if you know how to write subqueries, you're going to see more and more capabilities of Data Cloud being SQL enabled through subquery. And that's my quick highlight.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen. I lead our team of product managers that own a bunch of our developer tools. So things like our IDEs, our IDE extensions, our CLI, our Code Analyzer, DevOps Center, Apex. So a lot of the tools that y'all are using. 12 months in the past, I want to first call out a new product that we released last fall, which is Code Builder. So super excited about Code Builder. How many of you have never heard of Code Builder before? Awesome. That's awesome. I want to make sure everybody knows about it. It is our web-based IDE that comes preloaded with all of our VS Code extensions, our CLI, like 2 clicks, and you've got a fully loaded, ready-to-go IDE experience for doing development on Salesforce. So super, super powerful and easy to use. And then I can't be up here and not mention the other product that my team owns, which is Einstein for Developers. So speaking of what we released in the last 12 months, we just launched a few really powerful new features 3 days ago. So if you haven't heard about that today out here, I don't know where you've been. But basically, we are providing support and productivity enhancements for developers writing Apex and LWC through an IDE extension that's available through VS Code and Code Builder called Einstein for Developers. Helps you write code from natural language, helps autocomplete your code as you're typing, and helps generate Apex unit tests, which is super, super powerful. So I'd like everybody to give it a shot and let us know what you think.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dilip Burki. I own products related to package-based development, managed packages, unlocked packages, LMA and FMA. On behalf of the product managers and developers of Salesforce, I really want to thank you for the passion with which you have adopted our features. We get a lot of tough love from you, and we really love that because you are very vocal and vociferous in your adoption and issues that you see. Towards the end of 2022, when I'd spoken to many of you, talking about where is it that we should be investing, one consistent feedback we got was, hey, you guys are all rolling out all these features, but we are struggling when it comes to developer productivity. When it comes to fundamental things like how long does it take for me to push metadata to a scratch chart? How long does it take for me to build a package, install a package? These are huge productivity killers that despite all the awesome features you release, if you don't fix this, it'll be really challenging for our developers to be passionate about working on Salesforce Platform. And believe it or not, we took it to heart, right? We spent practically most of last year. We had some really great engineering partnership with Chris Williams, who is sitting there, who did a lot of evangelizing across engineering teams. We did not stick to only the packaging realm, and we did a bunch of stuff towards improving the performance of packaging operations. And when we talk about performance, it's always a bit tricky. It's like, hey, my package is only having this much of percentage of improvement. But we did very objective measurement, and in many, many instances, I'm talking about packages that are really large and complex, we measured 20, 30, 40% improvement in performance. We partnered very closely with with a lot of PMs that are here, like folks from Flow, folks from Apex. It was a truly cross-organizational effort. One thing that I want to really call out is the work Rohit and team did on scratch-arc snapshots. It's something that we all knew we have to work on, but there is a significant amount of investment, and snapshots is another thing that's going to significantly improve your performance. So we hear how important developer productivity is, and we have invested in it. That's something that I'm really excited about.
Awesome, thank you all. Okay, so now I'm going to put this mic in that stand over there, and it is, like, the floor is open. You can line up, ask your questions. We have so many people here to help today. No questions? Yeah, come. I'm happy to pass the mic too if you want.
Yeah, I didn't think I would be the first one, but so we can do parallel tests and sandboxes. We can run a deployment and then do parallel tests in a scratch org and then throw it away. When might we get parallel tests for production deployments?
That one's coming to me, probably. Do I have any engineers here from Apex? Well, I can tell you the understanding is during the metadata deploy, you're essentially running in a separate transaction. It hasn't fully gone to production. And the parallel tests actually run outside that transaction, which is why they're not supported during a deploy. Because to actually run a whole bunch of different processes in parallel, that code already needs to be in the production's metadata, and it's not. It needs to be like a fully isolated transaction. And it also comes down to other things, such as once that transaction's finished and the test's all complete for the deploy to production, we're going to do something like a full compile to make sure when the production org is ready to start taking that traffic, it's all ready, warm, and set. Does that make sense? Like, we can't run the test because there's nowhere to run the tests because they're not deployed yet. So they all have to be within the same transaction.
Yeah, so you'd have to do like a copy and then compile the copy, right?
Yeah, it would be quite difficult to run like an almost entirely third parallel version of your org to run the tests in parallel for a deploy.
And then the other thing is just anything you can speak to as far as performance of the language itself for Apex. I've done comparisons on just arithmetic, and I think it's quite slow. So that's another just general thing I could throw up.
So are you doing a lot of, like your particular need is a lot of arithmetic operations, or is it just as a general language?
Well, that was an example I ran,
Yeah.
just as kind of a benchmark. But I would assume that if arithmetic is slow, other things are probably also slow. I mean, you can test just evaluation of conditions as well, and compare the number of milliseconds it takes there, and so that all adds up, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking for areas we can improve the performance. I'd have to look at the particular area that was slow to understand why it was slow. I mean, I know sometimes when we've actually looked at the performance of Apex transactions, it's the things they're calling out to that are slow, so there's not much we can particularly do about speeding those up.
Yeah.
We are looking ahead a little bit. We are looking at overall application runtime performance, if you will, especially with the move to Hyperforce. We had, basically, it's a new infrastructure for us. So we have opportunities to optimize now. Given that we're in private cloud, we're looking at how we can auto scale. So that is, it's a not direct answer, but we are absolutely looking at the performance of not only Apex, but our overall runtime, inclusive of deployments.
Makes sense. Thanks.
So, as a consultant, we would love our clients to be able to leverage all these amazing new tools.
Can you speak a little closer?
Absolutely. As a consultant, I would love to be able to enable my clients to use all these amazing new tools. Unfortunately, they come with a switch. I have to go in to set up, I have to turn it on. DevHub, Code Builder, everything is one extra step. Some of our clients have a very interesting setups in terms of the bureaucracy to get that adopted. Of course, everything is under the MSA with Salesforce. They should be able to tap it, and it's okay. It's under the same layer of trust. However, that friction forces us to, stick to Dev Console for a bit longer. Are there any plans to just push everyone over the edge and, enable DevHub for everyone, second generation packaging for everyone, Code Builder for everyone?
So one of the things, we've thought a lot about this. One thought process is, when it comes to a lot of things, for example, second generation packages, even though it's a completely source-driven development model, we need to have a very strong notion of ownership. Who owns what, right? And for that, a Salesforce organization has been considered to be a really powerful mechanism to establish and transfer and manage ownership. We can continue to evolve and look at other ways of doing things, but even though we want to move development outside of an org construct and make it more CLI and code builder and source-driven mechanism, we are keeping a thin layer of ownership tied to an org so that a customer knows that these are the kinds of things that we own versus owned by someone else.
Yet when they ask us, is something bad going to happen when we turn that on, and we need to cross our fingers and say yes, could you please document that? What are the consequences of doing that in a way that's technically understandable, that when we are standing in front of an ARB, we can say, hey, these are the risks, and this is the way that we're going to protect against that. Otherwise, it's a lottery. It feels like that.
I think that's good feedback.
Let me add one thing on some of the other developer tools. So you mentioned Code Builder, DevOps Center, Einstein for Developers. These are all products that we've built basically on top of the platform. Like, we've built these as managed packages. And part of the reason that we've done that is to give ourselves some more flexibility and to act as developers. So there's a couple things here. Like, you all know that Salesforce releases 3 times a year. We would like to release more frequently than that. And that's one of the key reasons why we've decided to build some of our products on top of the platform. It gives us that flexibility to be able to release more frequently. Our CLI releases weekly. And so with that, we we now have this situation where we've got multiple products, right, and multiple extensions that make up this overall suite. And as you say, it's like, well, now I've got to turn on this, and I've got to turn on that, and I've got to install this and that. So I think it's a fair point, and we should look at this probably holistically and say, is there a way to make this whole suite a little bit more easily enableable? But that's kind of why we've sort of evolved to where we're at. And yeah, I think it's good feedback, though.
Hey everyone. So I'm a DevOps architect, and I help customers optimize their release pipeline. So I really love the work that your team has been doing. Dilip, I really like the packaging workflow. Rohit, thank you so much for org snapshots. They're finally here, and org shape and all that. They are really helping us remove some of the deterrents that have been there traditionally to adopt scratch orgs and a package-based workflow. But my question is that the elephant in the room about getting people into packaging is how do you break your happy soup into packaging, right? And how do you do dependency analysis, those sort of things. So I'm sure you've had some time to think about it with packaging being released for a few years now. So is there something on your roadmap that to improve how to break down packages, or I want to know how does Salesforce think about getting people started with unlocked packages? Do you guys think this responsibility should lie with the technical architects of the customers to design and decide how to do it? Or is there going to be a more prescriptive tool or an approach that will come out from Salesforce to do that? Because like I said, I really love packaging. It enables so many great things like trunk-based workflow and those sort of things. But I'm not able to recommend it as enough to my customers, because not everyone has that level of expertise to actually go through and do this detailed analysis and breakdown, which could take months or sometimes even years.
Thanks for this feedback. And my response is going to be a bit convoluted because there are multiple aspects in play here. The first thing that I will say is, when we launched unlocked packages a few years ago, we said this is how you should do development. We were very prescriptive about it, but we learned from the community. That's what I said, right? I mean, we get a lot of tough love from you. And one of the things that we did as a result of that is we launched org-dependent unlocked packages. And org-dependent unlocked packages enables you to modularize your metadata and do package-based development even when you have not completely separated out the different aspects of the happy soup. We also worked towards improving performance of building unlocked packages with a lot of work that we did. The one area where I have to be candid that we have not delivered is in the area of dependency API. That's a work that we started as a company, but it is currently unfunded, and there's a lot of work that Dan Fernandez, who's in the audience, is trying to do to get funding for it. We really want to use some of the AI capabilities to make it easier for you to tease out those aspects. So keep giving us feedback, but in all transparency, we have not delivered on dependency API.
I thought it was just because Vlad left.
We also have the 2GP package migration tool that we've been working on, right?
Yes, but I think what he's talking about is if you're a customer, imagine an SI starts working with a customer and they already have a really complex set of metadata in their happy soup. How do they tease them apart? And the dependency API, the promise was it will help you tease them out and structure and figure out, okay, based on this happy soup, I can construct 5 different unlocked packages. And that's an area where we have not delivered.
So Dilip, did I hear you correctly? You don't have anything on your roadmap to work on it. You have dependency API, but we're looking to get funding for it.
Yes.
Only then you'll start work on it.
The dependency API will give you the visibility into like, hey, which of these metadata types are related, which ones are more on the leaf node. But maybe one other point to highlight, I do think that this is an important architectural change for our developer community to embrace. We've been talking a lot about it internally, where packaging this happy soup all being deployed as one transaction was very powerful when we started. It's key to the app exchange, key to our platform. But you all have done amazing things on the platform. We continue to be surprised about how many things get into these packages. We're talking about tens of thousands of components sometimes, and we're starting to see the performance challenges that are hitting the limits of infrastructure. So the strategic shift that we were highlighting with 2GP is that I think you will also see advantages as you start modularizing these components into more independently deployable artifacts. They can be related, but as you look at your happy soup, I think you'll see your own performance benefits for how things are deployed as well as how things are updated and managed as you think about breaking apart your solution into more independent pieces. The 2GP migration tool was one thing that we've been working on, where we know our ISV community, people building packages, have been used to assuming everything is together. So we started doing our own heuristics and analysis for how do we provide a migration tool, just to help jumpstart. It won't be the 100%, but for the common metadata types, at least it'll start the process.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Suraj. I'm a Salesforce architect. And I have a few questions here. I'm not sure, looking at the line behind me, if I should be asking all of them. But I'm going to go with the top 3. So, Daniel, I think the first 2 are for you. Trigger finalizers. Anything? Would we get trigger finalizers that would allow us to determine that we have finished processing the last batch in, if we are trying to DML on more than 200 records at a time?
It's an interesting idea, and it's one that has come up before. I'm trying to think if there's something on the idea exchange for it. I think there is. It is a bit challenging because there's a whole lot of things in the order of operation beyond just Apex that are also firing. So where such a finalizer would sit in relation to that. And that also has complexities with terms of packaging. Could you imagine several packages all saying, I want to be the last thing in the transaction that runs, and then there's an order of execution for that as well?
What if you prevent synchronous DML in the finalizer, and you're only allowed to do async jobs or whatever, so then that would not be a contention, right?
Sorry, I missed some of that. It was...
No, if you prevent synchronous DML in the finalizer, so you can't continue the transaction further, you cannot do any more synchronous DML.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're saying once you're in the transaction finalizer for the trigger, you can't do certain operations. I mean, I'd have to talk to engineering about exactly what the... did you want to speak any? Did you want to...
Okay.
Yeah, it might be. It's quite a large... We have had discussions around it, and there's complexities with doing something.
Yeah, great suggestion. Definitely chat with Anon. He's one of our technical leaders for Apex after this.
Awesome. Will do. Thank you. Next question. I think we might have, okay, I'm just going to say it. Database.getQueryLocator. Can we not make it consume a query that will allow us to build semi-dynamic queries when, you can use database.getQueryLocator.getQuery to get the query in a string, even from a strongly typed query. And then we can add additional dynamicism on top of that. So that would allow us to at least get the fixed part of the query statically typed versus having to do the whole thing as a string.
This came up some during our roadmap session yesterday when we were talking about the future cursors work, where people want the statically typed SOQL query checking, but they don't necessarily want to run that full SOQL query just there. And it's probably something we would look at adding around that feature. So you want to be able to define a static SOQL query, but get the string version of that query out to then use dynamically?
Yeah, that's right.
But without actually running the query.
Without actually running the query.
Again, when we talk over there, let's discuss that more, because it's going to probably feed into our cursors work, where we're going to have a very similar need for static query checking, but you don't actually want to run it yet.
I mean, we kind of do that with batchables too right now, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That has a slightly different mechanism. Okay. Yeah, so we want to find a mechanism for that will work with cursors as well, because that's going to be the primary use case for building up with the static type checking and dynamic building on top of it.
Okay. And
let's talk, yeah.
Sorry, last question to Karen. Can we get an IDE independent version of LWC Lang server?
Sorry, Sorry, missed the end of it.
LWC language server. I feel like it uses Visual Studio Code APIs, like FileWatcher APIs or something like that internally. Is it possible to get an IDE independent version of the Lang server? Like basically all kind of developer tools, other than VS Code extensions, like the core tools that power those extensions, can we make those IDE independent?
Do you have an answer for this? Yeah. Okay, this is Ananya.
Hi, everyone.
Microphone.
So our team works in the Salesforce Developers and
Get your mic.
project. Yeah, no problem.
Yes. So, to answer your question, one of the good things about how we've built both the Apex language server and the LWC language server is that we're actually following the language server protocol that was created by Microsoft. And so you can actually take that language server and put it into any IDE that you're choosing to work with. Now, what you won't get is all the capabilities from the LWC extension. That extension is specifically tied to that VS Code ecosystem.
Okay, so are you saying the LWC language server itself does not use any VS Code specific APIs?
No, the language server itself doesn't use VS Code specific APIs, but we combine the language server with the LWC extension functionality. Altogether, that gives you things like autocomplete and all of that.
All right, that's good to know. I'll take another look at it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
Why are you looking to use a different IDE?
Oh, I've been using NeoVim since forever, so I'm just like sticking to it. I feel like, I don't know, I want to, okay, I just like find it better to use it, and I run into less extension-specific errors when I use NeoVim because I have just keyboard shortcuts mapped to the CLI commands directly without any kind of intermediary layers. So I just like working in the terminal, so sorry.
Okay. We should chat after, too.
Okay.
Hi, my question is about packaging, 1GP, 2GP, parity. If an ISV wants to build a preference page for their app, remember the old days when you'd package a tab with it, which someone has to figure out the security for and the access, no fun, a lot of risk there. How would an ISV put a preferences page essentially into their app? Well, you want to put something like, I don't know, custom metadata, and then build something that would update the custom metadata record so that when you use this ISV app in a sandbox, the preferences stay because you've got custom settings, right? So none of this is possible today. We don't have access to the configure link in the list of packages, which is a great secure place so that only the right people can click it. And we can't update custom metadata via Visualforce, which I guess no one laughed, yes, Visualforce, but via the APIs or Apex in an ISV package. So where are we on that parity? Because, hey, people could build more ISV apps and Salesforce would make more money. See, I'll throw that out there as like an incentive to move me to the front of the line. But yeah, how can we do that? And is that on the roadmap?
So I'll answer one part of this question. I'm not the expert on custom metadata and Visualforce. One reason why we built feature management app and feature parameters was a
right. So, but then I think I know where you're going. The thing is, you have to be able to update those from the user and have it visible to the user. And I know we could build a full page of the feature parameters. I think it still holds. Where would that go into the sandbox is a big question. You know, when I make a sandbox, if I don't want to worry about that, I want it in a custom metadata record so that the preferences will be the same on a different license. Remember, if I make a sandbox and I get a new license record in my LMO, so it wouldn't really work. Can we get, I guess, boil it down, can we get a config page, can we get that config tab in 2GP, and can we find a way so that the preferences stay and we can build a nice UI so that ISV apps can have a preferences page so the customers can customize them so that more of us can, I don't know, be on the App Exchange?
Okay. So is it possible for us to talk offline? Because I want to better understand this.
Yeah, and there's a group of us in the Good Day Sir Slack workspace, and everyone should listen to the podcast, that are talking about this all the time. So if you want an invite, let's
yes,
in there
please,
as well.
please ping me, contact me. I would love to know more. Thanks.
Hey, everyone. State and country pick lists are a huge pain in the butt to manage manually. If you want to set them up from scratch, it's going to take 12 hours. They're not accessible in the metadata API, and the only way that you can adjust them is in the UI itself. There's no way to deploy them between environments, so if you want to test them in a sandbox before you enable in production, you have to have somebody manually sit there in the UI and do it twice, which is 20 or more hours of just manual, hands-on keyboard work. There's an idea exchange item that's been out there for about 10 years. It's collected about 11,000 points with no response. What's the technical difficulty in making this process simpler? Because when a customer comes to us and says they want to enable this feature, and we have to come back and tell them it's going to be 25 or more hours of billable work, that then they come to us and say, what can we do to circumvent this feature entirely? And that we're trying to avoid that. So what behind the scenes makes this so technically difficult to manage that it's either not available in the API, and what can we do to fix this?
I helped deliver state and country pick lists about 10 years ago. And so part of the challenges then was the change from a text field to pick list field. And so that conversion process, I know we took a stab at helping you identify where all the changes are. Your question is a little different than that though, right? There seems to be an API gap that you can't manage the state and country pick list itself through the metadata API? Or?
Yeah, there's no way to either, if you want to configure, say from scratch, and you want to set up the entire process from scratch, there's no way to manage that through any kind of Excel ingestion mapping, or again, moving it between environments is currently not supported, where if you set it up in a sandbox, you can't move it to another sandbox or production.
So Leo, I think the possible root cause, and I'm not an expert, if there is anybody in the audience they can chime in, is because I think pick list values are considered data, not metadata. So it's a very fundamental complaint that we have had from the community that until pick list values become first-class metadata, none of these things are doable, and leads to a lot of this. Go ahead.
I'm not an authority, but I think it's in the address settings metadata, and I think you can push it, but it has a problem with relabeling. Okay. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, we'll take this feedback back. I'll reach out to the globalization team and dig into this. So it's your question comes down to hey, there's a manageability problem, API gap between say Sandbox and in production. That's very good. It's just one concrete example of the API gap.
There could be a way to manage this that I'm just not aware of. But I would love to, again, get that documented
Definitely.
on the Exchange sync, or excuse me, ID Exchange, because it's been a big. I know it's again a lot of votes and no response yet, so would love to connect.
Definitely catch up with me afterwards. Love to get your name, contact info, and then I can give an update.
Thank you so much.
Good morning. Wendy, Solution Architect for Blue Shield California. We implemented Care Connect, which is our care management application, in large part because we were sold that we would not have to customize the solution. We could configure the solution, which is great, no problem. However, APEX sharing has to be used because our sharing rules are too complex. There's a 2 megabyte limit on some of our PDFs that we have to send to our customers. So we had to basically create a custom workflow where it will only send out a certain number during a period of an hour. And there's also limitations on both OmniScripts and flows for the number of steps that we can do, which then lead us to having to do Apex. And so a lot of these things are very frustrating because I'm sure that other companies that are in regulated industries are probably dealing with similar types of restrictions on the platform. And so this is more of a request on my part that, rather than just come out and say, our platform is great, you'll never have a problem. And the fact is that there are some specific things when you're dealing with regulated industries where the out-of-the-box platform cannot support that, which then lead us having to go down the path of, well, we are not going to rip this out, so we might as well build some Apex. And then that, of course, leads us to having to have higher cost of ownership and et cetera, et cetera. So more like a wish list. And there isn't a idea exchange, idea that we could basically put in there. But I'm sure that I'm not the only one that's dealt with this. So.
Good feedback. I don't have an answer. I don't think we have anyone here from our industries teams that would have that could better address, where should we be better at configuring our out-of-the-box solution instead of requiring you to write
Yeah,
text
and I
code.
think that may be part of the problem because these, for example, Apex sharing, that's a platform. That's platform-based. It has nothing to do with Health Cloud, has nothing to do with Velocity or Industries. However, I think there may be some interaction where it's like one team isn't really understanding what the other team is doing, and so therefore it's kind of like, well, they're working on it, and the answer is no one's working on it. So anyways, thank you very much.
How you doing, guys? Thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk directly to you. Really appreciate it. My name is Bill Dolan with American Auto Shield in Colorado. Oh, all right, great. Is that better? My questions are about external service registrations. Fell in love with them a couple years ago. Really, helps to shorten the development cycle and put a lot less responsibility on me, especially when it comes to owning the code and unit testing the code. First question is, will we see YAML support for external service registrations?
Do you want to take this?
Yes.
Answer is yes.
Sorry, it's a when question.
Soon.
Introduce yourself.
Touche.
I would be surprised if it's not released by Dreamforce.
Okay, great.
Safe harbor, right? That slide?
Sure.
It's already, the development has started. It's just final testing and getting it out the door.
Fantastic. We have to unroll a lot of really complicated specs because the transition from YAML to JSON breaks things, and now I'm the owner of that spec instead of the publisher of the API. We have noticed the performance of external services when we profile it. We profile it down to the method versus regular HTTP send, and sometimes we see significant differences, like sub-second to double-digit second performance changes over if I were to roll my own integration with HTTP send. Is there any kind of tool or technique I should be using to try to troubleshoot that? Is that a known issue?
I haven't heard that before.
That's good feedback.
Okay.
We haven't heard it yet, but we can ask the team.
I guess I'm just looking for like a way to turn on a lower level of tracing or something that I could send to you and say, hey, could you guys tell me what's going on here?
I think the common theme is with any kind of testing, especially in the context of flow, and it's not performing as you expect, and it's difficult to ascertain, is it the external service that's throwing me a problem, or is it my handling or configuration of the request response? From a performance perspective, that isn't a question that I've heard come up before, but we'll take it back and include it in that list of scenarios that are of interest to provide better visibility to.
Our team thinks that they've isolated it to the line that is making the actual call out. We tried to discount all of the structuring of the 92 classes we have to build for the request. But
Yeah. Hi, Sam from the Flow team here. What would be super helpful is actually getting a case from you so we can actually investigate. Everything is so specific, but that would give us an actual case to look at and see, is there anything that we can do better, or is it just we should provide better tracing tooling or something? But that's what I would recommend.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. And then last question is around authentication. You have a wonderful suite of out-of-the-box authentication, and then I just ran into one the other day where the publisher of the API is like OAuth adjacent. They decided that they need a few extra things in their payload, and so now I've got to build this weird, you'll hate it, it's get the token, store it as a custom setting, and then retrieve it in the external credentials. I hate it, but I could not find any other way to do it using the standard stuff, because I can't construct the payload the way that I want to.
Yeah. And then Ross right there who just stood up is a good person to connect with as well.
Sorry, yeah, that's your best option. That's what that's for. The plugin class is we see, I would say, a distressing number of outside vendors that are standards in the ballpark of standards. Like they've heard of the standards and they're somewhat near them and they can see them in their rearview mirror, but they're not actually there. But that's why that plugin architecture construct exists, is for you to be able to do that and minimize the degree to which you're actually touching that token, right? Because you should be considering it radioactive, right? So, but that's exactly the right point. That's what that's for. So if you see missing protocols, if anybody sees missing protocols, post to the integration area of the idea exchange. I was talking about this morning. And then on your prior point, I'm not sure why the call out would be that much slower with external services. Maybe it's the dynamic apex in front of it, but it doesn't make sense to me because the call out piece should be the same. So yeah, please file the case and follow up.
Okay, I hate to interrupt the questions, but we are actually out of time. Thank you all again for joining us today. Let me get my slides here. Yeah, so again, thank you all for joining us today. Please send us some feedback. Let us know how we did if you liked the session. Also, the PMs will be around after the session if you have questions. Yeah, thank you again. Thank you, PMs and architects.
Thank you.